Hello everyone, I am Michele Bedendo and I will be today the one talking. This is the first Anima Coffee Break talk we will have this week, and this will be a weekly meeting. One important thing I want to tell you that I won't be the only one here of Access Design. There will be other Access Design team members in the chat. You will be able to ask them questions and they will be answering them during this talk, while I will be explaining things about the topic we have today, which is the background model in Anima. Anima is a crowd simulation tool. So each week we will be trying to share the work we are doing in Anima and best practices from the team to the community of users. And I will start by showing you how to use this chat and how this meeting is organized. Okay, so I will now share my screen. Okay, so share here. This is what you should be watching. Okay, so you have here the main part of the screen, main viewport, we could say, and this is where you are seeing what I'm sharing with you. And on the right side we have the chat. Okay, so here you can write and talk and chat with other users, and also of course Access Design team members. Okay, below you have the text box where you can enter your messages, and here on the right you have the possibility to send a message as chat, a standard message to everyone, or mark that message as a question. Okay, so this is quite important on one side, because these messages marked as questions will be listed for us in a specific list, of course, so we can read just the questions we received. Okay, so if you mark as a question a message, better for you, because we will be reading that quite easily. If you write down in the chat, it's possible for us to be missing something. Okay, so this is quite simple. So let's get started and talk about Anima. Okay, so just like this, and here I have Anima launched. Okay, this is the software, this is the interface. I won't be covering in detail what the interface does. Okay, the topic of this meeting is background models. Now, this is actually a background model. And why it's called background? Well, it's called background because it is the scene, the 3D scene on top of which we will be creating our crowd simulations. Okay, so this is the reason for the background models. We have 4 background models coming right with Anima. I'm using Anima Lite, the free version of this tool. Okay, and today I will be showing you, starting from a simple but traditional project, okay, how to export and prepare for exporting to Anima your backgrounds. Okay, so let's have a look. In this case, of course, in Anima we can navigate. This is exactly one of those we already have, but here I will show you in 3ds Max this project I've been working on. Okay, so this is something that probably you already have seen in some Anima related content. Okay, this is a classroom. Okay, this is a typical architectural visualization project. Okay, this is a project meant to be rendered then in V-Ray. And one important thing is what I'm going to show you here as best practices, principles I'm going to talk about. It's not something related to 3ds Max only. Okay, you can use this and apply this principle also to Maya, Cinema 4D, Modo, Blender, and the 3D application you want. Okay, so we have this typical project. As you can see, there are no textures, no materials, since I want to focus just on the model. Okay, so this project, first of all, is made at the moment, actually it is, of 3.5 million triangles. While in 3ds Max we are moving in real time the viewport quite easily. This is not a problem. Actually, for this kind of project, this is not very huge, not very big. However, when we talk about real time in Anima, we have to take into account how Anima works, okay? Because Anima in real time doesn't calculate just the render of the model in the viewport, but you have to consider that it calculates in when importing the model in real time the collisions, and the collisions are those used by then the real-time simulations element we use in Anima. So one important thing is to keep the detail down. So one important thing is to export to Anima only those elements we really need to use. Okay, so for example, in this case, I have this organized on the left, for example, in layers. So I would hide the walls. Okay, so I would keep going with these tables and the floor. Now, what I want to do, well, it's very simple. I want to integrate into this project different, some characters animating, sit where the chairs are. So this way, Anima is thought to being able to integrate it into our pipelines, okay? One important thing is actually this. If I select all these elements here, yes, we have lowered the number, but we still have more than 2 million triangles, okay? So this is quite important to keep in mind that this is still too much. I wouldn't suggest you to use it. Always remember that this depends also on the performances of your machine, your computer, GPUs especially, but not only. Okay, so this is just best practice. So what we could do is to try two different ways, two different methods. Okay, the first one is in this case a bit specific of 3ds Max, but you can apply the same principle to other 3D applications, which is this one. Well, I will select this. Sorry, this, okay, this object here, I will isolate it, this selection. Now, this is a group. I will open this group, okay, and now we can have a look at these elements here, okay? So, for example, this chair has 27,000 triangles. Now, these are 5 chairs, so we are talking about more or less 100,000 triangles, which is quite a lot. So what we can do is try a method, an approach of non-destructive, okay? So a non-destructive approach. In this case, I would select this chair. Okay, I could do this with all the others, but I will show you this with just one chair, okay? And I would use, for example, a Pro Optimizer modifier, okay? So I won't go into detail on how to use this. I will just being able to tell 3ds Max in this case to reduce the amount of vertices, which affects also the triangles, to 10%. So we changed this chair from 27,000 triangles to 3,000. Okay, so if you multiply this by 5, we have instead of 100,000 triangles, 15,000. Okay, which is quite interesting. Okay, same thing goes, for example, for the table. As you can see, it's quite a lot of triangles. Okay, so this is a way of doing this. This is a good way on one side because we work on what we already have. The point is that if we have a lot of objects, okay, this could take quite a long time, or could take some time. So I will close this. Okay, I will exit the isolation and isolate. Okay. So we would do this for all these elements here. And what about the floor? Well, I will select the floor. The floor are 2,000 polygons, which are not very much. But in this case, the floor could be simply a plane. Okay? And so I will present you the second method, which is the one I prefer, I suggest you to do, which is this. I will show you directly since I already have it. Okay, so this one. As you can see here, the scene is a lot simpler. Okay, these are just cubes or boxes with a chamfer here. They are, of course, set and the sides and aligned to the chairs. So what I only have here are those volumes. This is a sort of blocking, sort of mock-up of the scene I will use inside Anima. Since Anima, the only thing that needs are the sizes, dimensions of those elements. So for example, this, if I select this, we are talking about 700 triangles. A lot less than the quantity of triangles we were working before. Okay, so what happens when we use something like this in Anima? Well, it will import faster. It will create less complex collisions. Even so, we will have the correct collisions for our simulations. Okay, and these will be perfectly aligned with the high definition, high resolution, high poly version of our scene. Okay, so this is the background model I would use. Now, someone of you could think, well, it would take too much time. Well, actually, in this case, for me, I've taken less time than the other option. And of course, it depends on each case, each situation. Okay, so in this case, what we would do is just to select this, export this, and then import into Anima. Let's see this. So we go back to Anima. I will just delete the background model I already have, and I can add here using the library backgrounds at the top left this plus button, and I will go to the folder where I have exported all these elements, and I will import this. First of all, here I have the high version and the low version. I will be importing the low version, and as you can see here, also on disk, we see the big difference. Okay, this is all memory we would occupy in the case of importing the classroom high. Okay, so I will import this classroom low, open, and now a very important aspect, which is the scale. Okay, in this case, the units we have used inside our 3D application. Take into account that Anima works in meters. Okay, so one important thing is, for me, for example, this project is set to centimeters. Now, one important thing in 3ds Max, for example, is this. If we go to Customize, Unit Setup, here we have two kinds of setups. The first one is the Display Unit Scale. Okay, this is not the real scale we're working with. Okay, this is just the scale, the unit of measure we are using in the field number, text fields, number fields, where we enter the values, but the actual unit of measure we are using is this, the system unit setup. Okay, so I have here centimeters, and I will configure in Anima centimeter as well. Okay, so I will click import. As you can see, it's immediate. And now Anima asks me, do you want to place directly this background inside the scene? Well, I will click yes in this case. Okay, so as you can see here, I will select the model, so I will be able to orbit around it. Okay, and here we have the exact same model I've exported from Max. And now what I can do is start working on my seats. Let's say, for example, here. Okay, so I can choose the seats tool, and I will start working. Okay, like this, and like this. Now, I'm not worrying about the exact position. I will be changing this. So right-click to close this. I will click on Generate on the right, and more characters will be created. Okay, we have populated these elements with these characters. So what I can do now is just take this and then adjust. Well, at this moment, for example, this character is placed to here, and so on and so forth. Okay, so keep in mind that in Anima we can correct and fix some of the animation, the poses. So for example, if I hit spacebar, then I have my simulation. As you can see, I have characters that I can use in still renders and also for animations. Okay, now the important thing is that we have a very simple model, but it's exactly the same as, aligned and the same size of the high resolution one. Okay, so when we integrate this, we export this simulation to 3ds Max or Maya or Cinema 4D, we would fit it perfectly. Okay, so this is one of the best practices to do with Anima and background models. Okay, now another important thing. Okay, I will delete this, and I will delete also this background model. And I want to show you one important thing, very, very interesting and important, of course. So I will create a character here. As you can see, we don't need a background model to create characters, but actually it's the important thing we usually do. Okay, so use background models to integrate Anima in our projects. Okay, so what I've done now is just to set the position of the character to 0, 0, 0. Okay, so is very important now to consider how the background model is placed inside the 3D scene in Anima. Okay, and in this case, Anima uses a specific approach. Okay, for example, let's go back to 3ds Max. Okay, I will just keep this and here. Okay, so I've decided that I want full detail or more detail here in this table, but as you can see, the floor, I have it as a plane. Okay, very, very, very simple. So what I would do is just select this, go to export selected, and export in FBX. I won't be covering the export process. This is not the point. Okay, I already have this exported. So I go back then to Anima and I add another custom background model. Okay, so I will choose this one. Okay, so click open, set it to centimeters, of course, import, and this will take a bit longer than the previous one since it has a lot more detail, as you can see, but nothing impossible. Okay, so in this case, I won't place the background model directly in the scene, just to be showing you that how we can place a background model inside the scene, which is just click and drag in the scene itself. Okay, very, very simple. Now, here is the thing. As you can see, we have the background model centered to the origin of the scene. Well, as you can see, the character here has updated the collisions. As you can see, it's in a very, very strange position. Okay, I will just, you see, well, this is not a usual way of doing this. Okay, don't worry. This is just as an example. So as you can see here, we have the background model apparently perfectly aligned with the origin. Okay, that's fine. That's quite fine. Now, what I will do is just create another simulation element. Let's say, for example, a path. Okay, so I will just create this, here, 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 and here. Okay, right click. I will click generate and we'll create more characters. And here, if we hit spacebar, then we have the simulation calculated and then executed. Okay, that's it. Now, one important thing when we work is that we usually, perhaps sometimes, work in team. So there will be someone working on the model, on the 3D scene in the 3D application, and another one working on the simulation in Anima. So what we would do is that during a project, we iterate. Okay? So when we iterate is because the project changes, the client wants something different, and so on and so forth. So what would happen in Anima? How can we update a background model? Now, this is very important. Okay? If we try to update the background model the way we think logical, like, for example, I select the background model, I delete it, okay? And what I do? Well, let's say here in 3ds Max, I take this element here, okay? I would take it and place it like here, okay? And I would export again. So what I would do is just to go to Anima, then add this new background model, okay? In this case, the classroom corner, okay? Now you will see import, yes. Wait a second, a couple of seconds. Importing it, okay. And now I would drag it in the scene. And some of you, probably everyone, would expect this background model to be placed exactly in the same position, since we have just moved something of the model, not the model itself. Okay, so let's see what happens. This is not quite right. Okay, this is not quite what happened here. Okay, as you can see, the simulation elements, the characters, are not set in place. It seems like they have been moved. Well, it is not that. Okay, actually, the path in this case and this character have not been moved. Why is that? Well, this is very important. Okay, I will just delete this path. I will be recreating it. You could think that this character has been moved. I select the character, and as you can see here, we still have the 0, 0, 0 position. What has been moved, actually, is the model, the background model, according to what? Well, this is the Autocenter functionality here in Anima. And it is related to the geometry density of the model itself. Let's say that we have a couple of vertices far, far away, as in a tail, okay? So something like here, okay? And we have export everything together, and probably we would have a strange behavior. We would have this model not very well placed. So what happens here is that Anima analyzes geometry and centers, moves all the geometry of the background model, trying to center where the most of the density, vertices, triangles, are on top of the origin of the scene. Okay? So what this does actually is then storing this offset, this movement offset, inside this node, this background model node in the scene. Here we see in the project panel. Okay, this offset is very, very important, because this offset is used also by all the simulation elements created on top of this background model. So what we should do is this. I will create again this path. Okay, the idea of updating a background model is not to repeat, not to repeat the work. Okay, so generate it. Okay, that's it. I will delete this guy here. And what I will do is not deleting this background model, but I will simply drag the changed background model on top of the scene. Okay, so this way, what happens, as you can see, is that the simulation elements with all the characters are kept in place. Why is that? Because this new background model will be using the same offset, original offset. Okay, so this way we can perfectly update models. Now, keep in mind, of course, that the more you change your model, the more issues you could have. Okay, but doing this way, you should prevent having any issues. So if you delete the background model and then you create in the scene a new one, you are creating a new offset. So all the elements, the simulation elements you already have in the scene wouldn't fit. Okay, so this is very important. And this is important because of what I've explained you. Okay, Anima centers on the origin, on top of the origin of the 3D scene in Anima, according to the geometry density of the models we are importing. Okay, so reduce details, export only those elements you want, and keep in mind this way of Anima to update the background model. Okay, this is very, very important. Now, what I will do now is to show you another issue you could have. Okay, first thing first, and is an issue about precision. Okay, so we'll just keep, I'm in 3ds Max, go to the top view, and as you probably know, well, I will tell you, these two black lines represent the axis the horizontal axis in this case, and in the center of this intersection is the origin of the 3D world here in 3ds Max, which it's the same in Anima. Okay, so what happens if we place this object here, or we have already placed this very far away from the origin, and we export it? Well, this is a problem of two kinds. First of all, precision. Okay, the farthest you are from the origin, the more issues of precision you will have. Okay, this is a common thing in Anima, especially in this case. I will show you. This is something you can try. I will use this. Okay, now this is a background model. I told you that it comes with Anima. Okay, and what I will do, I can move this and rotate it. I cannot scale it, but I can move it. So since Anima works in meters, I will move this element 2 kilometers away. So with this selected, I center it. Okay. And now, if I try to create a path here, let's see what happens. Okay, so I will create this path. Okay. Okay. So we are very far away. Okay, so I will try to draw the path, and as you can see, there is something not quite working. Okay, as you can see, these jagged lines, jagged shapes are the first symptoms of the precision, which is not working. Okay, and if I try to rotate, to orbit, as you can see, this trembles. Okay, this is due to precisions of this case, the render of these elements. Now, one important thing is that precisions is not just drawing these elements. Precisions, in this case, is affects the collision generation, and since all the simulation elements are related strictly to the collisions, the worse the collisions are generated, the worse we'll have the simulations. Okay, so this is very, very, very important. Okay, keep into account this very much. So what I suggest you to do is always try to keep your elements when exporting to Anima. Then in 3ds Max or other 3D applications, it's a different thing. Each application manages this different way. Okay, but in this case, try always to keep all your elements as much closer as possible to the origin. Okay, and what happens if we have a very big scene, let's say 2-3 kilometers? Well, the suggestion here is to split, okay, to create parts and work each part separately. This is very, very important. Okay, so this is another best practice, and keep in mind to take into account when working with backgrounds, okay? Because this way you will be able to update correctly your backgrounds, and you will be able to get the best results with your simulation, okay? Well, one other thing you have to consider, which is related to where your elements are placed relating to the origin, is the pivot point, okay? I will show you this. Okay, so let's take this background model. Okay, I will just place this one in the scene. Has been centered. Okay, it's exactly the same model as we saw before. Okay, so I have this, I select it, and as you can see here, I have my manipulator here placed where the pivot point of this model is. Okay, so for example, when I select an object in Anima, whether it is a background model or a character or whatever it is, when we have a selection, the orbit tool let us orbit around that selection, and this is very handy. Another thing is that with the manipulator we can manipulate these backgrounds. Okay, what happens if we have something like this? Okay, we import a new object. And okay, so I will delete this background model. Okay, so let's delete this, and I will import this new one. Apparently, they are exactly the same. Why is that? For what I told you before, okay? In this case, this model has been centered according to the geometry, where the most of the geometry is. And this model is exactly the same as the other one. But if I select the background model, look where we have the manipulator, okay? This means that the pivot point of this background model is placed there. So when we orbit, we are orbiting around that point, not the model itself, okay? And when we are rotating this, as you can see, this is something we probably wouldn't want. How we can control this? Very important, these two. In 3ds Max, for example, or Maya or Cinema for the 3D applications, we are able to place the pivot point in the place we want, okay? So in 3ds Max, but in Maya, it's the same exactly. If, for example, we have this object here placed this way, when we export this object to Anima, to being used as background model, the pivot point won't be this one, where we have it here in the center of the selection, but will be placed where here in 3ds Max, we have the origin, okay? So we can control within our 3D application how the pivot point will be in Anima. If you have tried to work with Unreal Engine to have real-time representation visualization of your projects, then this is exactly the same thing, okay? So keep in mind this. Even because if we try to update our background models with different pivot points, we could have some issues. So keep in mind. Okay, so the last thing I want to show you here in Anima is this thing, okay? This is a very interesting tool. And this tool is this one, okay? This vertical bar, this section bar, it's very useful. Why is that? Well, let's say that we want, for example, create again another path. Take this here, 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 and I want to click below this tunnel we have here, this corridor. We cannot, because the 3D cursor projects directly on top of the geometry of the background model. So what would happen is if I click here and I keep going, okay? So this is a problem, okay? As you can see, it's not a good solution. So how can we solve this? How can make it this more easy to do? Well, we could be rotating, orbiting, but what we can do is just left click on this bar and drag down, scroll down, 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 and we can create a section at the height we need. So now I can create, with no problem, no issues at all, my path, okay? And again, I can raise up this section bar again, up to the top, and having solved the problem. Now, going back and forth with this bar, okay, it's okay, but something better is to create some bookmarks, okay? So for example, I have this part here. I want to just work on the bottom floor. So what I can do is just set the section and right click and add a point at current height, as you can see here. And this little dot appears. Now we can do this also by using this plus button at the top of this bar, vertical bar, but I usually prefer the right mouse button, okay? Now, what we can do is, for example, organize this to create another bookmark here when we want to work on this other floor. This could be another area, okay? So right click, add point at current height. So we can simply, by clicking on these dots, switch between one section and another. And then what I usually do is just to create a bookmark for the whole model without sections, okay? So here at point at current height. Now, last thing I want to show you is this. If we hover these little dots, a little tooltip appears, a little label. By default, it tells me the height of that section plane. But what we can do, for example, is to rename it. So right click on it. Sorry, too fast. Okay, rename. We can delete the point, of course. Then rename it, and I will name it bottom floor. Okay. And now we have this. So why is this important? Well, two possible situations. Imagine that you are working on this, then you don't work on it during for a month, and then what happens is to consider that when we go back to this model, we could have several bookmarks, but we don't know which bookmark to what corresponds. Okay, so what we can do is to label them. And another thing is, imagine that this project is given to a different person who doesn't know this project and doesn't know what each bookmark does, refers to in this case. Okay, so this is very, very interesting tool. It works only with background models. Okay, so I think that that's almost everything we have seen: reduced detail, Autocenter, precision, pivot points, and this section bar and bookmarks. So as you can see, this background model, even if it's something quite simple, it's quite important. Okay, we work on top of it, so we need to be sure to being able to updating it, to being able not to have this background model affecting too much the performances, and then not having problem with precisions for the collision creations, and so on. We received one question actually that we want to answer. Is made by James, which is asking if he has a very big project in this case. So in James, in your case, for a project that large, I would suggest split in different sectors the 3ds Max scene using XREF, for example, and then make one anima scene for each XREF. Okay, this is quite interesting. I mean, consider that the anima plugin in the 3ds Max anima plugin manages multiple scenes of the same for the same project. So you can create a scene for each part of your project, and so linking more than one anima scene to your scene in 3ds Max. Okay, so this is the idea. With something like this big, the easiest way is actually to split in several parts. This is okay for today. I hope you will have found this useful, interesting, and we will see you in the next week with another topic. And remember, for any doubts, any questions you have, you can open a ticket on the Access Design website. Okay, if you have a license and so on, so you can have our support answering you without problems. And then in the next weeks, different topics and different discussions. So see you soon.